Welcome to Glitch Cube, we're a gaming podcast, and each week we take a deeper look into the art of video games. As always, I'm Christian.
I'm Chris.
And thank you so much for joining us again in this wonderful week here. We have a very interesting conversation ahead of us, I guess, right? My brain is broken, but this is going to be interesting. That's what I'm trying to say. Because this is a topic that we've kind of discussed for quite a while. It was actually on our list of things to talk about from early on when we were still doing like massive lists of things like that, which we will probably be getting back to. But it was one that we kind of forgot about for a little bit. And it's one that I think is really interesting in the realm of gaming, in media, movies, just really anything like that, right? Anywhere we're creating stories or creating a sense of escapism for an audience or an individual. And that is the themes or tropes that never die, right? It's these things that just keep getting reused over and over and over again. And while for some of it, and actually a lot of it, it still is really entertaining, right? It hasn't fully lost that entertainment value, but for some of these topics or themes or tropes or mechanics, they've gone a little too far, right? They might have been around for a little too long, or we're just lacking in innovation to make them just better or different. And I think that's one of the big things that, especially in video games, that we fall for a lot, is that there's such a lack of innovation for certain things. And we keep, praising the certain game developers that are not pushing the envelope. That's why we love indie games so much, right? Because they do push it. They do try and genre bend and change things up a little bit instead of rinse and repeat. But that's a whole another conversation there of complaining about certain things, which we try not to complain about things too much here. And that's on that note too, this isn't really like us ranting and complaining about things. There might be some things that kind of rub us the wrong way, but we're here to try and push innovation and start that conversation. So why don't we just start out with one of the biggest tropes or themes in games that is everywhere. It's been used over and over again. It's probably one of the easiest themes to start a game off with, and that is Save the Princess. It's not even exciting anymore, honestly, but seeing it from Mario, from Dragon Slayer, Zelda, like it's always the same thing where there is a damsel in distress. And that idea has been around forever. Like in cinema, that's always the Lone Ranger saving the girl, right? Like that's not a rare theme. It's actually a very common one. And in games, it just doesn't really give us that much like oomph, right? There isn't that essential drive anymore that I have to do this or I want to do this, or there's no excitement in the story. Or, maybe there are some examples out there that are pretty interesting, but having just the damsel in distress that can't fight for themselves is kind of lame. That knight in shining armor coming through, we've seen it, we've heard it, we've read it, we've played it. Let's get something else in there. But I don't know, there are some good titles, like I said. What's your take on the knight in shining armor or the Save the Princess theme that is everywhere, not just in games?
I think in games, it could still work if it was not the main premise of the story. When it comes to movies, shows, it's kind of like less exciting. I also don't feel like I see it too much anymore in television for the most part. But with games, it's like we still kind of see it here and there. But I think as time has gone on, it's become like a side story or a small step in the story. It's, to me, I liked the trope back in the day with Zelda and all that kind of stuff. Like, I thought that was cool. I was a kid, and it seemed good, but it's like nowadays it's just kind of weird. it's you can only do so much to make that story interesting, because it's like saving this princess or person. It's like ultimately how does that change the world? It's like not if you save them, do you save the world? Like that doesn't make sense. With Zelda, it's like
Well,
it just
save the
kind of worked.
cheerleader, save the world, right?
Yeah, and I mean, maybe that's why I kind of liked Majora's Mask and some of the other Zeldas over. Like I loved Ocarina of Time. Don't get me wrong, but when you look at the other ones, it made the game really interesting because it didn't have that trope.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I'm like trying to think of a recent title that really has that as the main focus. And I think nowadays, instead of a princess, they try to make it something else,
like
not
an
like
item or something, right?
Yeah. And I mean, that kind of makes sense too, but it's also overdone, like I'm not going to sit here and complain and tell all the things I hate about modern storytelling, but you really think back and saving the princess, saving someone that's like one of the pillars of storytelling. It's like either like Romeo and Juliet kind of story. I know there's a few different examples that everyone takes from, and I remember we spoke about that, I think, in a different episode.
Mm-hmm.
But it's definitely not interesting to me anymore. It's just there's nothing like noteworthy about the topic unless someone came in, spruced it up, made it different. That'd be kind of cool, but I feel like they would have to do a lot for that.
It's hard to really get excited about a game that has a character that can't do anything for themselves.
Yeah.
Right. Like that's not something common anymore. And like you mentioned, in films and video and shows, like that's not really like as common anymore. The quote unquote princess or person that, is being saved is able to at least do something. Like they can fight back for them. Yeah, they fight back, or they, manipulate. They there's something there that makes it exciting. But having just the helpless individual just there, it's like, okay. And then, like chasing them from map to map and all that stuff. It's like, all right, man, like I get it. And it's kind of funny too, because like I recently played and went through Mario Odyssey finally, right? Like very late to that game. And the whole time I was just like, like I wasn't really into it. It was fun, but like I was really into the mechanics. I didn't give a crap about like the story. For one, it's one that we've heard a million times, right? But like for two, it's like just
he was saving Peach in that too.
Yeah, he was trying to save Peach from Bowser.
Oh, I don't remember that at all. I just remember trying to fill up your little blimp.
Yeah, the whole point was that he was traveling to the various worlds to save Peach from Bowser.
Oh,
because Bowser kidnapped her in the very beginning to marry her, to force her to marry him. And at the end, it did have that nice little trope at the end where it's like, well, I don't want to marry either one of you. I'm just friends, right? So like Peach did have like some sort of final say. That was kind of like Nintendo's way of modernizing the Save the Princess story. But it wasn't like enough, especially after seeing Peach in games like Smash Brothers, right? Where like she can fight back, right? Like she's actually has a moveset. Why not give Peach in the Mario games a moveset like that, right? Like why not make it interesting that way, where you play a level as Peach, right? And maybe it's like a really floaty level or something like that, like that could be really fun actually. And it could be like, sure, like you play one level as Mario, fighting or trying to get to Peach. And then the next level is Peach trying to escape the castle itself. And maybe it always ends with her, getting captured again, or, some other trouble faces her. But that would be pretty interesting, right? Like maybe as Mario is trying to find Peach, Bowser lost her because she escaped. So now they're both like trying to get her, but Mario still thinks that Bowser took her, right? Like it could be like a really weird story where the princess saves themselves in the end. And
I mean,
that would be exciting. That would be different, right? It would give like new life into that genre.
I think that's why I like Mario RPG a lot, because Peach can fend for herself.
That's
like
true. That's another Mario
it
game
made
that,
her like a very interesting character. And I'm thinking about it now, and I feel like Mario maybe gets a pass on this just because a lot of people play Mario for like the world and like the themes and the setting.
Mechanics. Yeah.
I feel like most people nowadays kind of like, oh, we're going to save Peach. Okay. But at least it takes us on a colorful, pretty journey. And I think that's where like I'll play every Mario game that comes out just because, it's always a fun time. But I don't play them for the story. I mean, the one Mario game that tried to take itself seriously, the Mario and Rabbids, I can't take that story. It's like they try to do something different. It's a good game, like mechanically, but the story, I was like, I hate rabbits, but I like the XCOM style. And
I've never liked the aesthetic of the rabbits.
Oh yeah, I think I'd rather watch the Minions.
Oh God, yeah,
I'd rather
100%.
be a gentle Minion.
100%. I'd rather watch a Minion movie than be like look at rabbits because they look gross. I'm just gonna say.
Yeah, they do. It's weird that they're still around, but
it's a tough one to really like get around, right? And it's a tough one to really modernize, I would say, because it's a classic like fairy tale, right? They're taking a classic fairy tale and making a game out of it. And maybe we are picking on Mario too much because it's Mario, right? Like you said, they pretty much do get a free pass at that because they might not push the story, but they do push the mechanics themselves. They push the environment, they push all those things. And like Super Mario Galaxy was awesome. Like that was really cool with the 3D worlds and all that stuff, the crazy upside down stuff. Like that was really, really cool and really innovative. And I feel like that pushed that game genre forward, but it still had the classic story behind it. Like it had that basic bare bones framework, right?
I think when I look at like a good Save the Princess story, even though it's not the full story, I think of Final Fantasy IX, right? Like the beginning of the game, you realize, oh, Garnet is a hottie. I want to save Garnet from, the queen, right? So you try to save
Belheim,
the princess.
right?
You think, huh?
Queen Belheim, right?
Belheim.
I think it's Belheim.
Oh, the queen.
Yeah,
I think, or the person. Yeah. And it's like, I love that because like you think that's going to be the plot of the story. Like, oh, I'm going to save the princess and make sure she's safe. And then like all this other shit happens. And you're like, whoa, like this game went off the deep end. But it was cool because, it started with a very simple trope and then just took it somewhere totally different. And I think nowadays I like that where like, oh, you have to save this one person, but it's just a small segment. And it's kind of cool.
Right. It's a good like entry point, right? And like you said, that is probably like the first like 25% of the game, right? To get people really vested. But by the time that story changes or takes a flip, right? Like you're vested in it. You love the characters and the story, the setting. You want to know what else happens. So I think that's a very interesting way of doing it where you start with a very common trope just to get people excited and get them in the door, right? And then once they're in, then you flip them, right? Like you make their head spin for a second and you change the story up and you make it what they weren't expecting. And I think that makes it really like memorable too, because it's something new, it's something different. And that might be the best way of doing it, actually. And Final Fantasy IX is a great example of that. I didn't even think about that.
Speaking of Final Fantasy IX, a trope that has really bugged me for, oh my god, years now, ever since the shift in the storytelling in these kind of games, but modern JRPGs, it's, I think back to the greats, right? The Super Nintendo era, the PlayStation 1 era, even PS2, right? They all had deep, dark stories. You could argue that one of the tired tropes in that genre is you start out weak and then you fight God, right? Everyone always says that. But something that I've noticed about modern JRPGs is that a lot of new ones, not just fan service the hell out of it, but they almost, it feels too weeby. And I say this as someone who really enjoys anime a lot. They just seem very simplified. And you could argue, oh, because modern games, you can simplify a lot of things that, you know, people don't have the time that they did back in the PlayStation 1 era. You know, you think back to Final Fantasy 9 or any of them from that era, Wild Arms, all of that, like RPGs, like you had to devote your time.
Wild Arms is great.
Huh?
Wild Arms is great.
It was cool. It was different, you know, and I get it. You know, people don't have all the time in the world to just sit there and grind and all that. But some of these modern ones have grinding too. It's just, I don't want to say, oh, the games are too colorful and bright, because, you know, there's some colorful ones that do look great and they play well. You know, I think for me, you know, looking at games that just came out, I really enjoyed the first Xenoblade Chronicles a lot. I liked how, even though it was kind of bright-ish the way it looked, the story was pretty dark and it was good. Like, it felt mature to, I would say, like, you know, a person in their early 20s. And I'm comparing this to saying, like, think about like Vagrant Story or like an older RPG where it's like, oh, this is like a 30-year-old kind of person, like storytelling. But the first Xenoblade was cool. I liked it. And then, you know, number 2 comes out, and this is coming from someone who has played it, and I know people say, oh, you got to get in further till it gets good. But it's just kind of annoying when it's like, oh, here's some like big titty like waifus, you know, and they just throw it all at you. Right. And, you know, there's nothing wrong with like having like attractive looking models like in the games. But when you make that kind of your selling point to really push these party members, or, you know, you look at Persona where it's like, oh, I'm going to get in this relationship with someone who's not an adult. And it's like it's just, that kind of stuff is weird to me. And granted, Persona is a little different because it is from an older era as well, but it really adapted a lot of these new era like kind of ideas with their games. And I'm trying to think of the most recent JRPG I played where it didn't really have these tropes. I would definitely say maybe like Square Enix RPGs don't really have those kind of issues. You know, you look at Bravely Default 2.
Less. They have it less.
Which one?
Yeah. I would say that they have, like, Square Enix ones have it less than most JRPGs out there. Like, I mean, if you look at Final Fantasy X2, you know. Yeah. Or 10-2, like, that's a little me. But besides that.
I'm thinking a lot of, like, when you look at, like, Bandai Namco's games or NIS America or even, I don't want to say Atlas. Atlas, that's kind of a different beast. But a lot of these other ones, it's the games all kind of have the same kind of very strong emphasis on an anime type story, but they try to like throw this fan service stuff in there. And it's just, I don't know, it's kind of weird. I don't want to say, oh, I'm a boomer, I like my story super dark, you know. I like cheerful stuff too in my games, but it's just kind of, I don't know. And I've spoken to quite a few people in like RPG groups, and, you know, we all agree it's like RPGs have kind of gone downhill in a sense. I do like how Xenoblade Chronicles 3 looks. I feel like they kind of turned it back around to what the first game was. But it's just, I don't know. I've tried so hard to get into a lot of modern JRPGs, and it's just like they almost all feel the same in that sense. And it's, I mean, they do the same trope, fight God and all that kind of stuff, which is, you know, nothing wrong with that if you can pull off a good story. But sometimes the stories are super convoluted. You know, I like a game that is 50 hours, but if it's going to be boring, you know, halfway through it, like, I don't know.
or just nonsensical, right?
Yeah.
That's a big thing with a lot of JRPGs where the story just doesn't make sense. You're just like, okay, like here's an 80-hour game, rad, like I'm all for it. Let's do this. It's worth the money and everything, right? And then whenever you really like get into it, it's like, oh, like this is maybe a 10-hour game, but 70 hours of I don't know what the story is, right?
Yeah.
Like it's almost like whenever people are trying to make sense of the Kingdom Hearts story.
Oh God, yeah.
It's like, yeah, good luck with that, you know. So it's weird, but I totally get you there with like the JRPGs and stuff like that. Like it always is funny to me that you start out not just weak, but a child, right? And now this child has to fight God and save the world, and it's like, okay, like sure, you know, like
it's very shonen, but it's
yeah.
weird when I think shonen, I'm thinking like, you know, My Hero Academia, I'm thinking of DBZ, like I'm thinking like stories where you're like the lone hero, right? But when you're in a game where you have party members who are equally helping you, it just feels weird.
Yeah, you're not a lone hero anymore. It's that team that's leading the front, right? Like it needs to be changed around. But I will say, like, one thing about My Hero, which I think is interesting that they did, because I just love My Hero Academia, so I would like to talk about it for a little bit, please, is that they are kids, right? Like, and they are going to be the number one heroes in the future. But I like the fact that in the show, they are not the best. They are not the strongest. Like, they often get their asses kicked and have to be saved by an adult who's been doing this for a while, you know? Like, they're just kind of living through it. And even in the story, or in the intro, like, Midoriya mentions, you know, this is the story of how I became number one, right? Like, it's not just, oh, like this 10-year-old kid is now all of a sudden bestowed with these powers and is a god amongst men. No, like there's a lot to it, and it often needs to be helped out by senior heroes. And I think that should be in some of these games, I think, especially like these Final Fantasy games where, like, sure, you might be like the chosen one, or eventually you will be the hero of light, but as a kid, you're not that hero, right? Like, so you're going to need help, and to really like play up that fact that like, no, you need help. It wasn't just you. It was the whole team that made this thing happen, right? Like that would be really interesting. And kind of like going off that tangent a little bit, like mentioning Hero of Light, that is another thing that I feel has been used and abused like crazy.
Hero kind of thing.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Where it's like chosen hero, like you've been chosen by the wind crystal and now you must save the world, you know, like cool. Right. I mean, even Digimon has that with the Digidestined and all that stuff. Like there's always this like weird idea of destiny made this happen.
Yep.
It wasn't the hard work that went into it. It wasn't that like you can work your way into being a hero, quote unquote, right? Like you have to be predestined to be this hero in order to make things happen, right? And I think that kind of sucks, right? Like that doesn't give a story that is 100% relatable to anybody. Like you can go then into like backstories and show that they had like a rough upbringing and all this stuff. But when you really boil it down, like no matter how hard their life was, they were predestined for this sense of greatness. They never had to worry, like, you know, theoretically, they never had to worry about life because it was always going to turn out as them being the heroes and the saviors of humanity, right? Like it is kind of like a weird thing to think about. And it sucks. Like it would be nice to have a story where, no, it's just some hardworking dude that wanted to change things for the better and just persevered and pushed through. Like that would be an interesting JRPG story, right? Like not some deity coming down and talking to you while you're sleeping, telling you, hey, you're gonna do great things and you have my powers now, so go do these things, right? Like no, what if someone like actually legit earned that stuff, right? And like legit went out there and did the work to become a hero. Like that's more interesting. I would play that. That'd be cool.
I would like that. And I feel like I have come across games like it. It's just so easy to get overshadowed by the whole chosen one, you know, because that's something that even plagues like Western RPGs, right? Like you look at Skyrim or any of them, like your character is like picked to save the universe or the map or the world, you know? And it's just like,
Mm-hmm. Or like Fallout, right? Like you are the last savior of, or I mean, last survivor, and you know you're gonna do great things. There's always like, you are the last, or you are the one, right? Like there's not. Why can't it just be like some guy that's like, hey, I'm not gonna stand for this. This isn't cool.
yeah.
I'm gonna fight.
I mean, I guess you could say Fallout 4 was kind of like that because you just were just another person leaving the vault. Because I know in 3, you do have some kind of destined story with a character without getting too much in the spoilers. Mm-hmm. But with 4, I remember it's like, oh, you're just a dude that woke up from the vault. Now you can investigate and stuff like that. And I mean, granted, 4 wasn't the best, but it was kind of different. And I liked that aspect of it where you didn't feel like you were destined at all for any of it. But it's just hard because so many RPGs pick that chosen hero. And, you know, sometimes it's done right. You know, especially if it's like where it's just you, like say Skyrim or something, where it's like you're the lone player and you're the chosen one, it makes sense. Because it doesn't make much sense, like, if you're the chosen one and you have your little party with you, how are they, like, just as strong as you? Like, why do you have to be the chosen one when your whole party kicks ass? Like,
or even stronger, where you don't want that member in the party anyway.
Yeah.
Right?
Like, it's weird. And this kind of brings up another trope that I feel like you don't see it as much anymore, but it's there, is the protagonist amnesia.
Oh, God. Or this, yeah.
Like, I'm not going to bag on silent protagonists because we already talked about that before in a different episode. But the amnesia is just like,
come up with something better. And why do they have to forget?
I thought the most enjoyable one, I can't remember what it was. It was a recent game, though. They used it as a play of like, oh, this is how we're going to teach the tutorial to you. And I was like, you know what? I kind of like that because so many times in games, you know, your characters just know it all, right? Like they know how to fucking solve the world's problems, but yet they don't know how to open their menu.
Right.
Or they don't know how to jump over a ledge. And I'm just like,
or just do a basic attack.
Yeah. I'm like, I like if you make the character like totally like, you know, have amnesia, then it makes sense that they have to relearn that. But there's so many times where like the character just doesn't know what's going on and it just doesn't make sense, you know? And a lot of times, I mean, this does kind of play into where they could easily use the silent protagonist, but I miss RPGs, especially where the main character, I don't want to say is a dick, but I kind of miss the days where the main character was not so nice. You know, I look at Ryoto from Grandia 2, and he's just a complete jerk to people. Yeah. And I'm like, this is kind of great because he doesn't take shit. And I know there's a bunch of other games where characters are like that. And it's so rare. And I'm just like, man, it's kind of funny when your character's rude. I don't know how well people could really pull it off nowadays because they'd have to watch themselves to an extent. But I thought it was kind of funny because, you know, it makes them sound like they know what they're doing. And they just stand out. Because, I don't know, the whole amnesia thing is just a weird concept to me. Because it's like, imagine you wake up, you don't know anything around you, and now you're destined to save the world on top of it. It's like, what? It's so stupid. And I know both of those usually go hand in hand. And I'm like, that's definitely one that I feel doesn't happen too often anymore, but it definitely was abundant at one point.
Oh, yeah. Like, that was our whole childhood.
Yeah.
I feel like every other game had that in it, where it's like, okay, another amnesia character. Like, I actually really like it. There's another way of doing the amnesia stuff that actually makes sense, right? That is very clever. And I always liked it whenever it's like, you get transported to a new land or a new time, right? And then now it's like, okay, that makes sense that your character wouldn't know how to interact in a situation like this now, right? So that's why the tutorial makes sense. That's why this play, right? Like if you get sent to another world or another dimension, it doesn't mean that your dimension is going to work the same way, right?
Yeah.
So having that whole, like, you don't have amnesia, you just don't know what the hell is going on. And I think that's very clever and a better way of doing it. But it's the same concepts, right? It's just another way of getting it where you make the character clueless so the tutorials doesn't feel like it kind of redundant or silly, right? Where it makes sense that you're going to be learning these things slowly or that your character's at a low level or anything like that, right? Like, I always thought that was interesting too, where if you start a game and you are the hero of light and you're level 1, right?
Yeah.
It's like, oh, like, okay, cool. Thanks, deity, for this wonderful boon of a wooden sword.
That's the thing. I'm like, okay, this person grants you the power, yet you're starting out at level 1. And it's like, why do I have to go on this huge journey when, if I'm destined, why can't I just kill it right away? Like, I know some games have kind of played that off well, where like you start off the game powerful and then you lose to the boss and then you lose all your power. And I'm like, okay, like that's a little better. I can get down with that,
right.
Because then you're like
the boss siphons the energy from you or something, right?
Yeah,
that could be interesting.
But like you said, like if you are destined within the first 2 hours of the game and you're barely level 10, it's like, what? Like,
yeah,
I don't know.
I think it would be kind of cool if like the deity was like, I will grant you my power, but you have to prove that you're worthy of it, right? And then that becomes like a late game action where they give you your power, but that all your actions leading up to that point were you like going through the grind, getting stronger, showing that you have the heart and the will that they thought you had, like that would be different, I would say, instead of it just being like, here's my powers, you have level 1 blizzard now. Right? Like, shoot, like what about Blizzaga? Come on, give me. Like, I know you got it, you're a god. I'll take that holy, please. No. Like, it's very, I don't know, it's tough. And it is a tough one to really do because like, what game is exciting whenever you're at level 100 already, right? From the beginning. Like, that's not exciting for a player because it doesn't feel like you're doing anything. There's no reward factor there. So you have to create those natural like progressions there as far as leveling up and stuff like that, going through that struggle to keep the game challenging, to keep it interesting. But it's, I don't know, like that would be kind of cool to be like, maybe it's a deity that is weakened, right? It got weakened by the big bad. So it gives you the remainder of its power, but like you don't start at level 1, right? Like maybe you start at like level 50, right? Like you're halfway there to being that godlike figure that can take down the beast, that can destroy the big bad, So you have some high level spells, but then it makes sense that those next, like the higher level spells are locked out to you because it was just a small portion of that deity's power. Because it went through the fight or something, like there's other ways of doing it that could be pretty cool, and it would be nice to like start a game with a pretty rad spell like flare or something like that, right? Like that actually means something, not like a cure that does 20, right?
Yeah.
Like saying, cool, I can't get hit by this, pig anymore that keeps ambushing me in the field or whatever.
Yeah, it's like, I feel like if people really wanted to like push that point, like say, start at level 50, granted you would have to raise the level cap or make it really different, but it's like, okay, I start out with some cool spells and obviously I want to go through the rest of the game still leveling to like say level 100. So you don't feel like totally, I don't know, weak, but, I don't know. That'd be a cool idea. But I don't really see people doing that at all. No, regretfully,
it's kind of a shame. It would be different. It would be nice. It'd be nice to see. So, kind of changing the I guess mindset or thought process here as far as, things that are being outdone. What about some genres that have been outdone and just kind of abused over the years? And I know of a couple off the top of my head already, but like one of the big ones I would say is roguelikes.
Yeah.
Roguelikes are everywhere, man. And you can, like, yeah, sure, they are fun, right? They are very entertaining games because the formula makes sense. It's really easy to get into. You don't have to really explain the rules every single time, which is nice, right?
Mm-hmm.
But how many do we need, right? It's kind of crazy. And, and what my big, like, I guess my big gripe with roguelike games is the lack of innovation or the appearance of lack of innovation. Like, sure, there are a couple really big standout games out there, like, Hades. Hades is fantastic. It's a great game. It's a great title. Spelunky, really, really good.
Mm-hmm.
But when you break it down, the formula is still the same, but they were able to do it in a very interesting way. They had to push the envelope as far as the theme, the art style, stuff like that, right? Spelunky did it with the actual environment itself. It was a very different type of, roguelike than we're used to, which is really cool. It's really, really fun. Power-ups are interesting, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it's like, what are we doing to really push that? And I do have a question for you because I'm really curious about this. Like, what roguelike do you think has been the most innovative out of like this whole plethora of roguelikes that we've had?
Oh God.
I know that's like a really long, like whole, like how do we answer that, right? Where do we even begin? But really, like, try, because I was thinking about this for the last couple of days, where what roguelike really changed the game up, really, really went that extra mile, and when they all got boiled down, they all were just the same game, just different skins, right?
I think
Or different art styles.
for me, if we're looking at like how it changed from like the original like Rogue or that one other game, Quad, or it I'm trying to remember. It's been a long time since I remember looking at some of the older ones where, it's roguelites in the beginning were those tile-based games where your character moves, everyone else moves one square, right?
Yeah.
And that's how it was for a long time. And there's nothing wrong with that. I played Dungeons of Dreadmore like a lot. Like I loved it. And
Cadence of Hyrule, right?
That's fun. Yeah, that too. And I think from that point of view, I think the first innovation that kind of came from that in a roguelite were mystery dungeon games, because it's pretty much the same thing but kind of simplified. I think the first innovation that we saw in roguelites, especially in modern time, was maybe like Binding of Isaac, because it really brought that like room-based adventure that took away the turn-based part of it but made it more of an action roguelike. And I think that game kind of pushed the idea in the people's minds, like, hey, this genre can be more than just tile-based adventures, right? Like this can be fast-paced. And there's a lot of roguelites out there that have added some differences, like there's a lot of copycats to that style, especially the Binding of Isaac style. But I think about like Rogue Legacy, where like every time you die you have a certain pros and pluses with what character you're gonna get. Or Hades, where it's like taking the roguelike style that has a progression based system, because a lot of them don't have progression based systems. You start off from scratch and that's it. But the thing I liked about Hades was that it took that progression side of it and just not only added a bunch to it, it actually had a story that kind of played on you dying and advancing the story, which I didn't really see that in other roguelites. You look at Binding of Isaac and it did have a little story, but it wasn't like anything deep. And I was a sucker for these kind of games. I remember Binding of Isaac was one of the first ones. When I had a long break from gaming, that was one of the few games that got me back into it. And I was just addicted to those kind of games, you know, all of the kind of roguelikes, turn-based, all of it. And, you know, a few stand out, but I just remember like that, like 2013, 2014 era, there would be like 5 new roguelikes every week, it felt like, or every month. And I'm just like, they do throw a lot at you, and not many of them are different. You know, I think the latest innovative one we've seen is probably Hades, just because it's done on such a like grand scale.
Right.
Like it feels like a AAA game with the amount of polish it has, even though it's not. You know, and you could argue that some people have taken the roguelike reset kind of idea and have innovated it, like say Outer Wilds, where, you know, you have your 20 minutes in the world before it explodes, right? And there is that progression system that you write in your notebook, so like you kind of feel like you're advancing. But it,
or like Returnal, even right?
Returnal, yeah. I always forget about that one. But it's interesting how people have taken the roguelike mechanic and put it into other genres. And I think nowadays that's what I like. I don't really care so much for like a true roguelike too much. But when games add that style, it adds the arcade aspect of a roguelike. And I think that's what a lot of people like about roguelikes, because it does feel like an arcade game. You know, like back in the day, you spent your quarters, you die, you're out of quarters, you have to start completely over again. And with a roguelike, you die, you start over. For the most part, you don't have anything that carries over. So it's that repetitive, oh, I'm going to make it this time, I'm going to do it. And that's why adding it into different kind of games, like say Returnal or Outer Wilds, stuff like that, I really like that aspect. Even though it sucks to start over, it keeps you coming back. It's addictive.
Right. And it's crazy to think that we've had Rogue games since 1980.
Yeah.
Like that's when Rogue came out. You gotta think about that. Like just let that soak into your brain, listeners. Like that's crazy. We've been having roguelike games for 42 years.
Yeah, it's one of the older genres.
Yeah. And it, you know, as much as like a lot of people like to, you know, kind of go on that train of like, oh, there's too many, it's the same thing. And I feel that, you know, I totally understand that. We get a lot of copycat games out there. We get a lot of the same thing, just rinse and repeat. But that was kind of the heart and soul behind Rogue itself. That was the original appeal to it, I would say, because during that time, gaming wasn't that huge. It was still kind of like an underground thing, I would say, right? Like, and a lot of these games were developed in colleges and shared amongst, you know, computer science majors and stuff like that. So the guys who made Rogue, it was Michael Toy, Glenn Wichman, and Ken Arnold. They actually released the source code for everyone, like for the people who enjoyed it. Like they wanted people to look at it, to pick it apart, to do something with it, to play with it. And that's actually really, it's an interesting thought, right? And that's probably why we have so many roguelike games, or why that's even just a genre now. Like, how crazy is that? That's an entire genre is based off of a single game. And we see that a lot more now, right? With the Souls-like or even Metrovanias, right? Like, that's a very commonplace thing here, but it's commonplace to us now. But thinking about it back then, like, they invented an entirely new genre style. Like, that's really impressive. It's really, really impressive. Very interesting to, you know, kind of appreciate and to just think about for a second there.
I mean,
just wanted to
think about
give them their time.
That era, like it was basically ASCII look, you know, like it was very like just hashtags, dots, and lines.
Yep, Dwarf Fortress. Yep, don't know what the hell's going on the screen, but you know.
Yeah, but people knew, like they learned, and look how it is now. You know, it's, to me, it's one of the most fascinating genres to really see the evolution of. You know, even though playing those old ones is pretty hard if you're so used to playing the modern ones. I know I kind of have a difficult time with them, But there's
no hand holding at all.
Yeah.
Either. Right?
But there's a lot there if you learn it. Like a lot. Like I know Dwarf Fortress, like I knew someone I worked with was very into it to the point where it was kind of scary. And they were like, you know, they'd play it every day and they'd be like, oh, this scenario happened, this happened. I'm like, how the hell does all that happen? Like at different times in the game? Because I'm like, the game looks so basic, you know, but I mean, there's a reason why people still praise that game to this day. They still think it's one of the more innovative games to ever be made. It's fascinating.
Well, I think that's going to do it for us this week. Thank you guys so much for listening in. We really appreciate all you guys out there. And I do have to harp on this. Episode 100 is right around the corner. We're about 3 episodes out from it, so that's about 3 weeks. And we are looking for questions. Thank you so much for the people who have submitted questions already. We really appreciate you. But we're going to be posting more on social media to gather some of your guys' questions, your comments, what you think, and just all that fun stuff. And, you know, ask us anything, you know, podcast equipment, favorite games, all that stuff, whatever you're interested in. It doesn't even have to do with games. Who knows, right? Anything you guys want. We are open books within reason. Be appropriate.
Yeah.
But yeah, anyway, with that, it's a pretty big deal. You know, like we're excited. It's going to be a lot of fun. And it's crazy to think that we're reaching 100 weeks straight.
It's crazy.
This show has never missed a week. That's nuts. But yeah, with that, it's going to do it for us. And we will talk to you all next week. Until then, bye for now.